What's good? We are back. Another episode of Paul Picker Podcast, aka Triple P, aka the Common Sense Podcast, your source for music, sports, politics, world events, and much, much more. Yesterday, we had a rock star, Keith Richardson, and now we're going to bring on another absolute vet. It's this guy standing right next to me and the author of this book. He has under 70 matches under his belt. He's fought in UFC, Pancrase, Cage Rage, in the WEC. He was a finalist on the Ultimate Fighter 4 and is now one of the voice commentators ringside for BKFC. And even with all that, he still has time to sacrifice his life, saving other lives as a firefighter. Let's bring him in, the one and only Chris Lights Out Lytle. Lights out, man. I hope I did a good introduction.
That was fantastic, man. Like the Triple P. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, Paul. That's cool. Loving
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I want to take you back at a moment of time. I want to start with senior year, championship for wrestling, state championship,
it.
Indiana. You came
Yeah,
in second, didn't get first, but what was that moment like?
man. That was painful, man. Second place is good in a lot of people's eyes, not mine. I felt like I was
Okay.
supposed to win that thing, and it's one thing if you go in there and there's a guy who's just better than you. I didn't feel like that was the case, so it caused a lot of pain, really, and a lot of I did a lot of stupid things after that for several years, and luckily for me, when UFC came out in 1993, I didn't know what it was. I didn't pay attention. And then by the time I started paying attention, really started learning what it was, I got involved in like 1998 early. The sport was about 4 years old. So when I got involved and I started training and fighting, I said, man, this is my opportunity to right all those wrongs. Like anything that I did wrong in wrestling, I was like, I want to make sure at this time when I finish this sport, there's no lingering bad feelings towards it. There's no feeling of failure. No matter what, win, lose, or draw, I'm gonna do everything in my power. So I have a feeling when I get done, I did whatever I could, and that's all I can worry about.
That's what's up. Now, you went to Indiana State University. You studied in sports management and Korean martial arts, Tan Su Do or Do, I guess it is. And what did you learn in sports management?
Actually, I went to Indiana University, not Indiana State.
Okay.
Two different places, but
Oh, my bad.
Indiana
Yeah, I
State is
read it
Indiana.
wrong. I read it wrong. Indiana University.
Yeah, that's all right. Man, to be honest with you, I didn't know what I really wanted to do, but I was always into working out. I was going to open up my own fitness center. I was always into working out and wanted to be part of that world forever. So I really learned a lot about how to put on different sporting events, and I thought at that point my career was over as far as competing. When you get done with wrestling, there isn't, unless you go to the Olympics, there's not much more. A little bit
Yeah.
of wrestling in college, but there's nothing. And then I start saying, oh man, this fighting stuff is real. Like I didn't even put two and two together for a long time. And then you start seeing Mark Coleman and Mark Curl, these wrestlers, Kevin Randall would come in, and I was like, okay, maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is something else you can do. So right around that time, I start, wanting to get out into the work world, and I start becoming a personal trainer and working in gyms, and was going to own my own facility and like put on these different, sporting events. I kind of started fighting, and then I lost all interest in getting a real job. I was like, man, I don't want to own anything. I want to fight. So my mentality changed once I kind of, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and then I found out what I really wanted to do.
Now, how'd the opportunity come about where you got into the Ultimate Fighter 4?
Well, okay, so I'd been fighting. Like one of my buddies in 1998 started telling me, "Hey, man, I'm doing this stuff like wrestling, but it's called shoot fighting. You'd be good at it. You're a good wrestler." So I went in and started training. This is in '98. Started training a
Okay.
bunch, and then I started fighting, and then I started, doing real well in the local scene, Indianapolis, Chicago, Ohio, anywhere around there. I was doing really well. Started going over to Japan to fight. Organization called Pancrase, for like Ken Shamrock came from, Boss Root, and all those guys. Started going over there to fight. Fought in the UFC once in like 2000, but it was like, man, it wasn't even a good organization then. It was before Dana White and then bought it, and I
Okay.
thought, man, this isn't going to make it. I'm going to go back to Japan and start fighting. And about two fights later, they sold it to Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, and then pretty quickly I started looking. I was like, man, this is in the right direction now. I really like the direction the UFC is going. So I started trying to get back in there, but they only put on like 6 fights a year, so it was hard to work my way back into the UFC. I got back in 2003, started winning some fights. Lost a couple, won a couple, and then I was still in the mix, but it was just a different time there. So in 2006, they asked me if I wanted to be part of the comeback season, Ultimate Fighter 4, because the first three Ultimate Fighters, it was brand new guys who never fought in the UFC. On my
Okay.
season, it was all veterans. Everybody had already fought there, but hadn't like made it to a title run yet. So they want to
Yeah.
know if I'd be in it. I was like, hell yeah. And so I got on.
Now you had some other accomplishments I've seen. You had a championship in hook and shoot,
Yeah.
absolute fighting championship promotions, won the Cage Rage World Welterweight Championship, and you became the 175-pound Indiana State boxing champion. Is any one of those that stands out to you?
Uh, man, the hook and shoot was really nice one. I remember they had a guy named Aaron Rodgers. Because back then you didn't just fight in the UFC. The UFC put on 6 fights a year. You had to fight more than just a couple times, and they weren't putting you on every card. So you might fight once or twice a year in the UFC. So everybody had to fight in the WEC, King of the Cage, whatever was available. And I fought in hook and shoot, and I had a guy named Aaron Riley who was had a couple epic wars with like Robbie Lawler and whatnot in the UFC, and everybody's like, man, this guy, you can't hurt this guy, you can't knock him out, and I knocked him out in the first round to win the title. So that was a big one for me. Really like that, and obviously I like winning the Indiana State boxing title. That was fun.
Now, when you ended up retiring, man, was that tough for you?
Man, it was very tough. People don't realize, like, I didn't realize it, but when you're fighting as a goal-oriented person, like life just makes sense. It's like, okay, I have a fight in 3 months. My fight is, let's say, June 3rd. Okay, so for this next 3 weeks, I'm gonna do this, and then start the next week after that. Now I start 2 days, and then I got to eat this. I got to sleep here. Your life makes sense because you understand when the goal is, and it's all planned out. You plan everything out. When there's no fight, you're like, what is the goal? What are you supposed to try and do? How do you set your life up, man? It's like, what are the goals? To be a better father. There's no end date. You have to like have a beginning and end. When do I start? When do I stop? It's not just some open-ended, what do I do now? You know what I mean? So a lot of fighters, I think you see them come out of retirement, they don't know what to do when their career is over. They just, all they've known is how to fight. And it's discipline and it's hard, but you understand it. You know what you have to do. You don't know what to do a lot of times. So, and for a lot of people, that is their one and only identity. I'm a UFC fighter. Oh
Mhm.
shit. So if you're not a UFC fighter, what are you now? You have to find a way to transition to something else, man. I mean, I was fortunate. I was on the fire department my whole career, like you said. That definitely helped me. I had 4 kids. That definitely helped me. But it was a transition period for me as well. I can't imagine for somebody who didn't have those other things to fall back on, the being a father and being a fireman, man. I mean, a lot of those people go through a certain level of depression no matter what.
And what really made you getting into being a firefighter?
Man, yeah, okay, so when I was at IU, I remember one of my buddies was like, "Hey, let's do this forest firefighter class," and
Okay.
we could take that. And I was like, "All right." And I remember the first, it was like over the summer, and I saw this thing. We went and watched, and it was crazy. You watch these videos, and it showed these people out in like Colorado or something, and they were in these
Yeah.
mountains, and then all of a sudden this like fire, when it gets that hot, stuff starts to explode, and a thing went all the way over to the other side of the valley, wasn't supposed to, and caught that dry grass on fire. And these like 12 guys that were trying to work their way down. Next thing you know, the fire's coming up at them, and they had to turn around and run. And that fire's going like 15 miles an hour up the hill at them.
Oh, man.
And they got overtaken. All 12 of them died. You know what I mean? So it was just like, damn, man. You
Oh,
start looking at
man.
that stuff, and something's wrong with me, man. I'm like an adrenaline junkie type of guy. I like parachuting and bungee jumping and whitewater rafting, all that stuff. And I was like, man, I mean, just watching those classes, it's like, man, it's like, it's entertaining, man. It's something different every day. Your life might be on the line. So, um, I got out and I started, like I said, I started working in my field, and really quickly I realized I didn't want to own a gym. I didn't want to put on events. I want to be a fighter, and I'm still a personal trainer at this time. And I'm at the gym. There's a couple firemen who work out there, and they're like, man, I'm talking to them about my fights. They're like, Chris, you should be a firefighter. You'd be a great firefighter. And you get a lot of time off. You work 24 hours on, you get 4 days off. You can train on your 4 day, 8 hour days off. It's like, man, that sounds phenomenal. So I started trying out. I got on, and it was great because I love going to work. What do you do at work? You get to help people, maybe put yourself in some dangerous situations, but you get to help people. People look up to you. It's a nice thing, and you really become close with the people you work with. It's very similar to the gym environment. The people you train with at the gym are your brothers. People at the firehouse are your brothers too. So a lot of camaraderie. It's just a great job.
Now, produce the interview where you were talking about when you first heard about bare knuckle, and you heard somebody was fighting bare knuckle, and you thought that was ridiculous and crazy until you saw how it actually looked. What do you think? Uh, was like what wrong perception did you have about bare knuckle at first?
Man, I thought it'd be like a bunch of guys in a warehouse with a bunch of cars pulled up around to see the lights, so the lights could shine in, and it was these guys gonna be standing there with like jeans on, just hitting each other with no gloves, and blood was gonna be everywhere. And then I was buddies with Joe Riggs. I go, damn, Joe's doing this. I said, what does he owe people money? What's going on? So it's okay. Let me see. And I hit play on the video. I start watching. I was like, oh, okay, it's in a ring. I see. So, oh shit. There's a referee. Okay. And then like he knocked the guy down. They kind of. I was like, oh man, this is different. And then just how technical they were being. Like I started realizing, I mean, you can't just go out there and just punch people. You have to be very technical because it's like boxing on steroids. You have to be better at not getting hit. You have to be better at placing your punches. You got to be highly skilled at all this to be good at this sport. And as soon as I watched, I was like, man, I've been doing MMA. I did NHB. I didn't even do MMA. NHB was no holds barred back in the 90s. You could headbutt, you could kick a guy in the
Oh
face on the
man,
ground. You could do anything, man. So
damn.
that's where I came from. That was what I thought was normal. That's what I loved. And when they changed it, I get it. I didn't really like the new rules, but it is what it is. I understand you had to make it safer so that they would legalize it. But I mean, but I'm still in old school. I like all that stuff. So when I watched it, I was like, man, how do you call yourself a combative athlete if you see this and you don't do it? I was like, I this time I was already like 43 though. I've been retired for 6 years. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do a fight. I got to do one. I got to see. I got to be part of this. So I kept trying to get a hold of people over in Europe. It wasn't legal in these states, and so I started calling over to Europe, talking to people. Finally, I got a hold of people. They brought me over to do a fight, and I was like, hey, I got one in. It was fun. I liked it. But I was like, I had to go to England all the time. I don't know. So then a few months later, they got a hold of me like, Chris, we legalized this in the United States. Will you do it? I was like, hell yeah, I'll do this. And I started looking at the BKFC, what they had going on. I was like, I got to be part of this organization. I was like, this is everything I like about fighting. Because fighting to me was the NHB time, the no holds barred. You two guys
Yeah.
go in there, you go to war, man. I mean, whatever happens, happens. That's why I love going to Japan. It was like you're gonna fight, somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose, but you're gonna beat the brakes off each other. And then, you know, if you win, lose, or draw, as long as you come to fight and put on a war, people loved you. We've lost that here in the States. It's all about like, I'm gonna try and outpoint you, hold you down, just win at all costs. And I don't want to see that shit. That's boring sometimes. So I want people to come to fight like the toughest, meanest dog's gonna win that fight. And so to me, that's what BKFC offered. And I just like, man, I got to be part of this. I want to fight some, but I want to. I'm 40. I think my first fight with those guys, I was 44. I had a couple fights at 44, hurt my wrist again, had to have surgery, and then I was just like,
Damn.
man, let's just commentate this bad boy. I've been working on getting knowledge for about the last 22 years, 23 years, and fighting. I might as well translate some of that knowledge into letting other people hear it. Because if you just build up a bunch of knowledge and don't do anything with it, man, it's kind of a wasted 25 years of your life just to have a bunch of knowledge and die with it. I'm going to go ahead and give it to either coach somebody, train somebody, commentate, do something to use that knowledge you've learned.
Now, I know this guy didn't win no fights, but how tough was Drew Lipton? He fought you, which when I seen him going up against you, I was like, there's no way he's gonna win this. And then he fought Redneck McDowell right after that.
Yeah, I mean he'll fight anybody. That's the thing. Like, yeah, the dude comes to fight. He never turns down a fight, and you got to respect that, man. A guy who's just going to go out there, especially just going against the toughest competition. I felt bad. The second guy I fought at BKFC was a guy named JC Lamas, and he fought me and he fought Mike Richmond. Those are his only two bare knuckle fights. I'm like, man, you might want to try some easier guys. You know what I mean? Like, so some of these guys, they just fight. They just want to fight, and that's what I like about this sport. That's how when we first started doing NHB or MMA, as it turned into. I mean, you didn't turn fights down. You couldn't
Yeah.
turn down a fight if you were picking and choosing. There wasn't any money in it, so you just fought to fight, and that's what I think. Bare knuckle has early on. It'll go away at some point too. It'll start turning into money. It'll be different. Hopefully that's in 10 years, 15 years from now and then I'll leave the sport to find the new thing they'll bring on. Maybe people fighting alligators or some shit. I don't know, man. Whatever it is,
They
I'll
already
be into
doing
that.
that.
I won't do it, but I'll talk about commentators. I don't know.
Now, whose idea was it for you to get into commentating? You or Feldman?
Well, I had done a little bit of commentating before, so I kind of came with that idea right away. So I knew, like I said, my first fight for BKFC, I was 44. So I was like, man, I'd
Yeah.
like to do a few fights, but I mean, I knew like my family and my trainers really didn't even want me doing any of this type of stuff, man. They're like, you had a great career in the UFC. What is wrong with you? Why you want to do more? And I was like, man, I got to do this. You don't understand. It's something I have to do. But at the same time, I've been around enough fighting to know Father Time is undefeated, and it doesn't go well for guys later on. Like they when they start taking shots because they've slowed down, the older brain doesn't handle it as well. And I didn't want to be one of those guys who I've seen like all my favorite boxers got brain damage, all of them. You know what I mean? So I don't want to
Yeah.
be one of those guys who is like, talking bad, trying to talk to my grandkids like, what are you talking about? Just because I didn't know when to stop. It's never going to be time to stop. You're never going to want to quit fighting. I know
Well,
that. I've always known that.
it's good that you got the commentating because you can still do what you love and still have a second career, right?
Exactly. That's my point. Like I said, I keep trying to tell younger fighters, like especially guys in their 30s, I'm like, man, you better figure out some kind of exit strategy because you ain't going to want to fight. So what are you going to do? Are you going to coach people? Are you going to run a gym? Are you going to commentate? What are you going to do? You have to have a way to be around the sport. I'm really trying to get a lot of guys to be referees and judges because we don't.
Okay.
There's too many fighters, too many judges or referees who've never been in a fist fight in their life. How you gonna tell somebody if they want to fight? You don't know what you're looking at, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
but they're in there judging. I mean, who was there? Was just a UFC fight they said with that was that Tayavusa versus Rosenstruck or whatever. I mean, they said one guy gave two up Tayavusa like all 3 rounds. And the other guy gave the other guy all 3 rounds. I was like, dude, like it was a split decision, but man, it's like, come on, man, what are you even looking at? Did you bet
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
guy? How can you call this guy to win when other people said he didn't win any rounds? And he definitely didn't win all three. So it's like, I don't know what they're looking at sometimes. So I want to have real fighters in there doing that spot. You can be around the sport. You can give back to the sport. You can enjoy it. But, man, don't quit fighting, please. Quit. When you are done, be done. But they don't know what to do, man. I understand the stuff. We need some people to talk to them and make like a pathway after you're done.
That's the same thing with musicians. They don't understand it. You gotta find something quick, like because it doesn't last that long. Now, Kansas City card. Did you feel like there was too many early stoppages
You mean by the judge, like by
or
the
the
doctors,
medical,
or?
the doctors?
Well, it was a little interesting. I think a lot of times the doctors, I mean, usually we have a great doctor, have a Dr. Muzzy. He does a great job. But there's certain ones he doesn't come to, and you're relying on that state commission. I think a lot of times they're not quite used to bare knuckle the way we are. So I think they see some things, and you know, sometimes they stop them early. I can't really question the doctor at this point because I didn't have time to really take a deep dive and look into the cuts.
Yeah,
Sometimes they're worse than people think. Like you have a little thing by the eyelid right there, by the tear duct. And like, oh, we got to stop this. I mean, they could lose their vision. So I don't really know what was done there, but man, yeah, I'm always a person. Every time I fought in the UFC, hell, even in bare knuckle, I would talk to the referees. And I'd be like, hey man, look, I've been knocked down before, never been knocked out. I'll keep going. So don't you dare stop it just because I get knocked down. If I'm not moving, you stop the fight. But if I can keep going, I will recover quick and I will defend myself. Give me the benefit of the doubt. And they always be like, "Thanks for telling me. I'm not gonna let you get hurt, but I will give you the benefit of the doubt. That's all I ask." You know what I mean? So that's what I always want to let them know. Like, I'm gonna be smart enough to understand how to do this. I'm a veteran. Don't stop this fight early.
Yeah, and it felt like one of the fights, I don't remember which one, but it felt like the doctor probably could have caught it then and felt pressure from the crowd because the crowd was definitely booing about those stoppages. They
Yeah,
wasn't playing
yeah.
with that one.
For real, man. I noticed that. I was like, ooh, especially, man, that Alvarez girl, her face was swollen up pretty bad on the eye. And they're like, yeah, keep it going. I was like, I don't know, man. Like I said, it is unfortunate that the crowd, was booing because they were pissed at what happened before, but it is what it is.
Now, Charlene Gellner, I think that's her name. What was your opinion of her debut? I thought she was pretty ferocious.
Man, are you talking about, yeah.
Charlene Gellner,
Oh,
the
yeah,
one
yeah.
that won the female fight in Kansas
Man,
City.
she looked phenomenal. I mean, I didn't know what to expect from her, but
Yeah.
her movement was good. And she threw good combinations. Her hands were on point. I mean, she kept landing that hook, bop, bop, boom. That's what swelled, Alvarez's eye up badly because Alvarez looked good her first fight. She looked real good.
Yeah.
She got beat up this fight, man. So yeah, Kellner's gonna. Yeah, I want to see her fight again. I definitely think she could fight at the 115-pound weight class as well. So she wasn't. She went up to 121. Then the other girl didn't make weight, so she wasn't happy. But she could definitely be a 115 pounder.
And that might be better for her as far as trying to win the belt, right? To
Oh
actually,
yeah,
that's Britain Hart, right? 115. Because
for
Christine
sure.
Ferreira, oh man, that's gonna be a tough cookie to crumble right there.
Well, here's a point. Like, Faria cuts down from like 140.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of these girls, Britt Hart and Taylor Starling, they're walking around on 125 and trying to fight a girl who walks around at 140. There's a difference in power.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be the same thing here. I think there's a lot of girls who will probably start going, 125. Those girls are bigger and stronger. If you cutting down, there's a huge difference than somebody walks around 140 and someone walks around 125.
Friend of the show, Blaine Warburton. What did you think about his debut?
Um, Man, who is it?
Blaine Warburton. He fought Justin
Glenn Bourvet. Yeah, yeah,
Martinez.
man. I, you know, well, first of all, didn't even come near weight. He didn't come near making weight. That's a big problem to me, man.
Yeah.
When you sign on the dotted line, you don't make weight, and you don't even try. No, man, that's something's wrong with that.
So he didn't even make weight,
Not even close.
and they still he still let him fight.
Well, the other guy said,
Yeah,
Martinez said,
Justin.
no,
Yeah.
Justin said, I'll go up in the weight. So he went way up in weight to make sure that they did fight. And he was, I mean, to be honest with you, Martinez, like, he hurt him. He knocked him down, and he landed some good shots, knocked his mouthpiece out. I thought he landed the better shots.
I did too.
I thought that Warburton did a good job of just touching him, just trying to keep busy, throwing those jabs, making his eyes swell up. But I mean, I really think that if it went the distance, I think that there was no way Warburton was winning. He might have been able to get a draw out of it, but I mean, it was, I thought Martinez was looking pretty good.
I agree with you that if it went the distance, Warburton would have probably lost it. It didn't look like he really worked on his cardio, which seems to be a big thing in this sport.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. People think it's 5 2-minute rounds. That's gonna be easy. I do 15 minutes in MMA. Ain't the same thing. I don't care what you say. It's different, man. It's just like a difference between like a sprint and run the mile. Like, oh yeah, I can run a mile. Yeah, but can you run it as fast as you can? No, you can't. It's different.
Reber versus Blas. What can we expect with that one?
Man, here's the thing. I don't know what to think about Blas as far as what are we going to do with his long-term goal, because I've never seen him out the first round.
Yeah, that's
Can
what
he
everybody
fight past
says.
the round? Can he? I thought when his last fight, I thought, okay, we're going to see something now, because, you say whatever you will, but I mean, nobody else has been able to get, him out of there the way that, I mean, he did I couldn't believe how accurate his hands were. I mean, Blas looked phenomenal. I thought for sure that was going to go 2 or 3 rounds. I want to see if he can go a couple rounds and not be tired. But I mean, didn't happen, man. He was just on point, got the quick knockout, and won the title, man. So I if Ryan Reber can make it go past 2 rounds, then we're gonna see something. But man, can he make it go past 2 rounds? Because Plus is turned into an animal. I mean, he was a great wrestler, but now his hands are just getting better. I mean, like I said, Richardson was we never seen him get beat, let alone
Yeah.
stopped in inside 2 minutes, and not only that, but inside like where he didn't know what was going on. Like I think after the first knockdown, he didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, I just interviewed him yesterday, and he definitely trying to get his belt back. And I remember the first time I seen Blas fight, he hit guy with like a two piece, broke his nose, and did a backflip. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I want to bet against this guy.
He's an athlete, man, and like I
Yeah,
said, he was a big, wrestler from Cuba. So just work ethic and strength and powers. Now his hands are starting to get good too. Like he's starting to become accurate with his hands. Oof, that's a scary guy. He can do it all, I think. But like I said, we don't. There's some intangibles we don't know about. Does he gas out after 2 rounds?
yeah.
I don't know. We haven't seen it. You know what I mean? Maybe he hits a wall. I don't know. And that's what we're gonna have to see. Everybody's beatable. Is that his kryptonite, or is this gonna somebody get out jab him? I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. We haven't seen enough of him yet. We haven't seen him go more than 4 rounds, and he's already the title holder.
And Reber's not the one you want to go the distance with after the Perez fight. I watched that back after before I interviewed Ryan Reber and still felt like he was going to lose the fight after knowing the outcome already. It was like there's no way he won this fight, but he
Yeah,
did. And I
yeah. I mean,
mean,
the first 3 rounds he's losing. You know what I mean? And then,
yeah.
but he's always in good shape. And he comes and he changed around, put it on him, and just start whooping him at the end of that. But I mean, just a different mindset and that different that cardio. Man, cardio is everything in this sport. If you can keep going and keep fighting, and that guy can't, it's over.
Oh, my dog tripping out over here. I got a few more questions, and then I'm gonna let you go do the shout outs. I know you got a busy schedule.
Thank you.
Um, Canada, Edmonton. Like, I don't know much about these fighters in this card. Like, what's the fight that I need to be looking out for?
Well, I think the main event's obviously good.
Yeah.
Suve, he was one of the guys I had from the tryouts.
Okay.
He's going to be really good. And another guy from the tryout, that Sonny Smith, is fighting in the main event. I mean, Sonny was 2-0, in bare knuckle before the tryouts. Stu, is 1-0 now. I think both those guys have some good potential to be pretty good fighters. Then we had some other good guys who had some big knockouts, Chad Lucanis and um, man, just there's to be a lot of raw talent there. The good news is like they don't have much background in bare knuckle. Put on a couple fights here. Like I always talk about how when you do your first bare knuckle fight, you don't really know what to think and what to expect. After your first one, you go, okay, now I get it. So from
Yeah.
then on, every day you train, you're thinking bare knuckle, and so it's making sense. So if they've had 5 months of now bare knuckle thought process behind their, okay, now they're going to be better this time. And then after that, like it's usually about, I think that between the first and second fight, you get a lot better. And then about the third or fourth fight, you get better, like jump up a level. So let's see if these guys have been doing it long enough now to jump up a little bit. And then, the sky's the limit. You start doing like bare knuckle, getting like into your second year. Yeah, you get really
Mhm.
good. So let's see if these guys can make that leap that I think they could.
Who's an up and coming fighter that a lot of people might be just overlooking that we need to look out for?
Well, I don't know if they're overlooking him anymore, but that Perdomo is going to be
Oh,
a problem for
yeah.
everybody, man.
Yes.
Another guy, Nathan Rivera. I really like
Okay.
him. He's a young guy who he seems to really get it. But not only does he get the fighting aspect, he gets all of it. Like I remember after his last fight, he before the fight happened, he brought me a note and he said, "Open this when my fight's over." As soon as the fight was over, he got a first round knockout. He said, "Welcome to the Rivera era." So I was like, so he gets it on a how to market himself level. He gets at a fighting level. I think he's going to be a problem for a lot of people. But he's what we're looking for. He's like 26 years old, young, and I love the fact we're getting a lot of guys now. I'm like, oh, what's your background? Is it boxing, MMA? They're like, nah, I'm a bare knuckle guy. I'm like, oh shit, that's what's up. When you don't want to do with those other things, and this is what you want, Yes, that's what I was hoping. I remember back in the day when when MMA or NHB, whatever they want to call it, it was like this guy's a wrestler, this guy's a judo guy, this guy's a, nobody was a bare knuckle, nobody was a MMA guy, nobody was a I want to. I'm just this is what I do. They always did
Yeah.
other things first, and it was until they became like I want to be an MMA guy. That's what we're getting for bare knuckle already, and it's crazy and it's faster than I thought it would happen, and I love it.
Yeah, I interviewed at least a couple people that said they went pro boxing or pro anything just to get into bare knuckle.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I know.
So I want to ask you about the book.
Okay.
I was actually reading it, Lights Out on Bullying, dedicated to your son. This first part, man, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, man, I was getting teary eyed on here. Now, is any of this true? Like you said something about like you getting bullied. Did you get bullied when you were a kid?
I mean, not too much. My thing was where I hung out though when I was growing up. Everybody there was older than me, like 3 years older than me. So I'd hang out with the older group of kids because in my neighborhood that was it. And yeah, I got beat on a lot, but I mean, I was just happy to be hanging out with the older kids. You know what I mean? So they would beat on me for a while, and then it was funny. Like they would beat on me. If anybody new came in, they would stand up for me. So it was kind of cool that I kind of learned a lot. Like, yeah, I'm part of the team, um, but they still beat up on me. If the other people went around, I was the guy who got picked on a lot. But I think it just made me a lot tougher. It made me just, I wanted to hang out with the older kids who I thought were cool no matter what. And it kind of they didn't treat you good, but then when it push came to shove, they did. So I don't really look at being bullied like that. But no, but I never really respected the bullies, man. I remember, you did have those people you can see doing that. I never thought, man, when I get older, I'm going to be the guy who's picking on people. I want to be the guy who stood up for the people, man. Those are the guys I looked up to, the people who stood up for people like me, man. I still look up to those people. It's been 40 years since then, but I still like, man, that I saw one of the guys who kind of like would do that for me, and now looking back, he's like 5'6". Like I tower over him, but he stood up for me when I was like 10, and I still look up to him and like, man, you know, I appreciate that.
Did your son have to deal with bullying? Is that why you wrote this book, or just
Well, I mean, luckily
to
for
make
my
people understand like autism and things of that nature?
I mean, more so like my son was very fortunate. He had brothers and sisters, and I'm well known in the community, so I don't think he got really picked on much. But I just see it happens a lot, and so I just
Yeah.
wanted that to be out there for other people. Um, suicide is up all over the country, and I just really feel bad for. Can you imagine as a parent, your son or daughter kills themselves because they're being bullied or picked on? I mean, you'd never be the same. And it's like, why? Just because some other people, like, people don't pick on people because they're happy. Like, there's no bullies who are really secure and happy with themselves. They're insecure people
Yeah.
wanting to make they feel better because they're making somebody else not feel as good. They feel like, oh, people, I don't know. So I just want to try and convey the message that if you have the ability to, it is your not only your job, it's your responsibility to help people out who can't help themselves out as much. And you will be looked at as the hero. And I talk about how I look up to people still this day. Like I said, people who protected me and stood up for me. I don't care. For the rest of my life, I always look at you as a hero. You can be looked at as a hero for standing up for somebody else. Just help the people who need help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, my father committed suicide when I was 5 years old, so I wish he had somebody close to him like you, because it weighed on me like most of my life. It made me depressed most of my life, and I felt like most of my family definitely failed my father and failed me after my father did what he did. But it also made me the man I am today as well. I don't know where I'd be at today if he didn't do what he did. Um,
Well,
well,
that's
I
good
know you
because
got.
you've been
Go
able
ahead.
to take that and find what happened and the negatives and positives and dwell on the right and utilize that as a positive thing. Some people just never able to make that choice and never able
Yep.
to make that happen. So I commend you for being able to take a situation and most people 8 out of 10 will go down a negative road with it and you take that and you found the positive area in that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's easy to like just follow in the footsteps. The hard thing was to keep going, I guess, and find happiness. That was a hard thing for me, just to find true happiness in life. And now I wake up every day, I get to promote music. I don't get up and say, "Oh my gosh, I have to promote music today." No, I get to promote music for a living, and I get to interview bare knuckle fighters and old school hip hop artists and R&B artists that I grew up admiring and listening to. So yeah, man. I mean, everybody needs to strive for some kind of happiness in life, and doing what you love is definitely the best thing. Before we go, anything you want to shout out?
Just everybody, man. If you're not checking out the BKFC yet, you got to check it out. We have the app. Just go to BKFC, or we're on Freevee TV or Fubo Sports. But man, like I said, you don't have people out here trying to win decisions. You got people trying to come knock people's heads off. We put on a lot of fights. They're very entertaining. We had 10 fights last week, and 9 of them ended in knockout. If you don't like that, I mean, something's wrong with you, man. Nobody ever says there's too many knockouts last night. There's too many decisions sometimes, never too many
Yeah.
knockouts. We got all the knockouts. We got everything you want to see.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, man. And you're a friend of the show. Anytime you want to come back on, please do. And I'm always following everything you do, and will support everything you do, man.
My man, Paul. Hey, man, let me know when you want to come do a fight. Come check one out.
Yeah, I heard y'all supposed to be coming to North Carolina soon.
That's what I keep hearing too. That's what I keep. I know we've been in South Carolina a couple times, but I'm thinking North Carolina is very close to having us come. And let me know, man. Like when you want, I'll definitely take care of you.
I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Thanks, Paul. Take care, buddy.
All right, bye. Well, a true American hero right there, Chris Lights Out Lytle. Spent all his life sacrificing his life to save others. Check out this book, Lights Out on Bullying, written by Chris Lytle. And definitely watch the BKFC on the BKFC app and all the places he just told you, Fubo Sports, Freevee. And he's the voice commentator ringside, still in the fight game, doing what he loves. And I'm glad he came on to the show. It was truly an honor to interview a guy that's a complete veteran in combat sports and knows more about combat sports than I will ever know. Once again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Paul Pickett Podcast. Peace. I'm out.